My name is Lisa G. Pillar, and I am 28 years old. My boyfriend said it like he was asking me to stop by the store on my way home, like it was a small favor that would make his life easier. I need you to stop coming around, he told me, his voice calm, almost careful. My ex-girlfriend is staying over, and I don't want drama. He didn't say it with shame. He didn't say it like he knew it would change everything. He said it casually, like he expected me to nod and disappear. I remember standing there for a second too long, trying to process the words in the order they landed. Stop coming around. Ex-girlfriend staying over. Don't want drama. The apartment around us looked the same as it always did. The same half-folded throw blanket on the couch. The same water ring on the coffee table from his glass. The same faint smell of garlic from the stir-fry he'd made. Nothing in the room matched what he had just said. I said okay. Not because I understood. Not because I agreed. Because I felt something in me go still. The way it does right before you step off a ledge you didn't know was there. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't ask him to explain how he thought that request was normal. I just looked at him, nodded once, and felt my chest tighten with a kind of clarity that was almost clean. The ending makes no sense without the beginning, because before it collapsed, everything looked painfully normal. We met at a rooftop party in July 2022, one of those hot summer nights where the city felt alive and the skyline glowed orange as the sun dropped. He was standing near the railing, talking to someone I knew, drink in hand, laughing like he belonged there. When he turned toward me, it was easy. He asked my name. I asked his. We talked for 3 hours without checking our phones once. He worked in project management for a tech startup, the kind of job that made him sound busier than he was, and I liked that he could talk about it without trying to impress me. I was a freelance graphic designer, mostly working from home, juggling client work and deadlines like they were puzzle pieces. We exchanged numbers that night. 4 days later, we had our first date at a small Italian place downtown. He ordered bolognese, I got carbonara. We split tiramisu and walked along the waterfront afterward. He kissed me first, and I remember thinking it felt simple, like something I didn't have to overthink. By September, we were spending every weekend together. By December, we were talking about moving in, like it was the natural next step, not a risky leap. By March, we signed a lease on a 1-bedroom apartment in the city, $1,400 a month, split evenly at first. Groceries, utilities, streaming services, everything divided down the middle. It felt adult, stable, real. The apartment was small, but ours. Exposed brick in the living room, a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people to stand in, windows overlooking a busy street that never fully quieted. We made it work anyway. He worked from the kitchen table most days. I set up my design station in the corner of the bedroom. We fell into routines that felt like proof we were building something. Coffee together in the mornings, dinner most nights, weekend farmers market runs, movie nights on the couch with our feet tangled under the blanket. For the first year, it was good, easy, the kind of relationship that didn't require constant reassurance because the foundation felt solid. But there was always his ex-girlfriend. Her name came up early on our 3rd date, and he told the story like it was already resolved. They had dated for 4 years, high school sweethearts who stayed together through college and into their early 20s. He said it ended badly. Toxic patterns, codependency. He said they brought out the worst in each other and he needed space to grow. They stayed in touch, he told me. Casual, no hard feelings, just 2 people who grew apart and moved on. I believed him. I wasn't the type to demand someone cut off their past. People have history, that's normal. But her name stayed present in a way that felt too consistent to be accidental. A text here, a call there. He would mention her in passing like background noise. She asked about that restaurant you recommended. She might be in town next month. Small things. Nothing I could point to and call betrayal. Just enough to keep her in the room even when she wasn't. The first real red flag showed up in early fall, September or October. He mentioned she was going through a rough time. Lost her job, layoffs, rent stress, not sleeping. He said she called him overwhelmed and needed someone to talk to. I felt bad for her at first. Layoffs were brutal. I said that out loud. He nodded, looking almost proud of his own empathy. She doesn't have a lot of people she can lean on, he said, like that made him responsible for catching her every time she fell. Then he said something that landed weirdly in my stomach. I might lend her some money, he told me, just to get her through the month. I asked how much. He shrugged. 200, maybe 3. The next week it became 500. He showed me the transfer like it was proof of his kindness, said she needed it for rent, and promised she'd pay him back by the end of the month. She didn't. He didn't mention it again. Neither did I, because I didn't want to be the girlfriend who monitors generosity like a suspicious accountant. But something about the way he did it felt off. Not the helping, the loyalty behind it, the way he said her name like it carried weight. By November, she was texting him almost every day. I'd see her name light up his phone and watch his expression soften before he even opened the message. He started smiling at his screen in the way people do when something feels familiar and safe. I asked once what they talked about. Just catching up, he said. She's doing better. Found some freelance work. Still looking for something full-time. Then the texts kept coming anyway. Morning, afternoon, late at night. And at some point, he started angling his phone away when I walked into the room. Not dramatically. Just a small shift that made the screen vanish from my view. One night I came home around 7:30 and he was on the couch, phone in hand, grinning at something. I dropped my bag and asked what was so funny. He jumped slightly and locked his phone. Nothing, he said. Just a meme she sent. I asked if I could see it. He shook his head too fast. It's stupid. You wouldn't get it. Inside joke. Inside joke. That phrase stuck in my ribs like a splinter. Inside jokes meant shared history, intimacy, a language built over time. I had inside jokes with him too, but hers were making him smile in ways mine weren't. A week later, she called at 11 at night. We were in bed, half asleep. His phone buzzed on the nightstand and he sat up immediately, eyes sharp. I should take this, he whispered, already sliding out of bed. She's probably having a hard time. He walked into the living room and closed the door. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the muffled sound of his voice through the wall. He laughed twice. The conversation lasted 23 minutes. When he came back, I asked if everything was okay. Yeah, he said, climbing back under the covers. She just needed to vent. Work stuff. She's stressed. At 11 at night. She's a night owl, he said, like that explained why my bed had become her emergency hotline. I didn't sleep well that night. By mid-November, I started noticing more. The way he checked his phone more frequently. The way he seemed distracted during our conversations, like part of him was elsewhere. The way he lit up when her name appeared and dimmed when it didn't. One Saturday at the grocery store, we were in produce, and his phone buzzed. He looked down, smiled, and I didn't even have to ask. I just said her name. He looked up startled, then nodded. She sent a photo of a dog she saw, he said. He put the phone away, but the smile stayed. And I stood there holding apples, feeling like I was watching someone else's relationship happen in the middle of mine. I wanted to ask if he was still into her. I wanted to demand clarity. But part of me didn't want to hear the answer, and another part of me already knew it. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in late November, one of those cold gray evenings where the sun sets too early and the city feels heavy. I came home around 7, and he was in the kitchen chopping vegetables for stir-fry, hair damp from a shower, oversized sweatshirt, barefoot on cold tile like he belonged. He didn't look up when I walked in. Hey, I said, how was your day? Good, he said, still not looking up. Then he added, listen, I need to talk to you about something. I poured water and leaned against the counter, waiting. He scraped onions into a bowl and said it like it was already decided. She's coming into town this weekend, he said. She needs a place to crash for a few days. I told her she could stay here. The glass slipped slightly in my hand. Here, I repeated, in our apartment. He nodded. Just for the weekend, maybe a little longer. She's in between places. I asked where she'd sleep. The couch, he said, then paused. His knife hovered over the cutting board. Or maybe I'll let her have the bed. I can sleep on the couch. I don't want her to feel uncomfortable. I stared at him like I'd misheard. You want to give your ex our bed? He finally looked at me, eyes steady, like he'd rehearsed this. It's not like that, he said. She's going through a lot. I just want to help. I told him I wasn't comfortable with his ex-girlfriend staying in our home. He accused me of being controlling. I called it a boundary. He said he already told her yes. That's when his tone changed. Colder, more final. I need you to not come around at all for a while, he said, as if he was offering me a reasonable compromise. I don't want drama. Seeing you here will make things harder for her. Just give us space until she gets settled. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. Traffic hissed below our windows. My heartbeat felt loud in my ears. I looked at him and said it slowly, because I needed him to hear it in the shape of truth. You're asking me to leave our apartment so your ex-girlfriend can stay here with you, because seeing me will upset her. He nodded, relieved. Just for a little bit, he said. A week, maybe 2. I'll text you when things calm down. I nodded once. Okay. Relief flooded his face. He smiled like I'd passed a test. Thank you, he said. I knew you'd understand. I walked into the bedroom, pulled a duffel bag from the closet, and packed like I was checking out of a hotel. Clothes, toiletries, laptop, charger, the book I'd been reading. I moved carefully, methodically, because if I stopped moving, I might have started shaking. He stayed in the kitchen. He didn't follow me. He didn't ask if I was okay. When I came back out with the bag on my shoulder, he was plating the stir-fry onto 2 plates like I was still eating dinner there. I'll call you in a few days, he said brightly. Once she settles in, we'll figure out when you can come back. I nodded again. Sure, I said, and walked out the door. I took the elevator down 14 floors, got in my car, and drove across town to my brother's place. He opened the door, saw the bag, saw my face, and didn't ask for the whole story. You need a couch, he said. I nodded. He stepped aside and let me in. That night, I stared at my phone, waiting for something from him. A text, a check-in, any sign he realized what he'd asked me to do. Nothing came. And in that silence, something in me locked into place. Okay didn't mean I'd wait. Okay meant I was gone. The next morning, I woke up with a strange calm, the kind that doesn't feel like peace yet, just the absence of confusion. My brother's guest room smelled like laundry detergent and coffee. Sunlight came in through the blinds in thin stripes across the floor. I lay there for a minute staring at the ceiling, not sad, not angry, just clear. I wasn't in a fight. I wasn't in a misunderstanding. I was in an ending. At 9 a.m., I called the landlord. Our lease was in both names, but I had been covering 60% of the rent for the past 4 months. My boyfriend's freelance income had dropped, and he kept saying he was trying to build his client base, trying to get stable, trying to recover. I picked up the slack without complaint, because that's what you do when you think you're building a life with someone. I explained to the landlord that I needed to be removed from the lease. He was polite, professional, and slightly annoyed the way people are when they've heard relationship drama before. He said he'd need my boyfriend's signature to remove me. I told him to send the paperwork. I wasn't going back to the apartment. Then I went to the bank. We had a joint account for shared expenses, rent, utilities, groceries. $1,500 sat in there. I transferred out my half, $750, and removed my access, leaving him with the rest. It wasn't punishment. It was arithmetic. I wanted nothing tying me to a man who had just asked me to disappear so his ex-girlfriend could feel comfortable. After that, I changed passwords, streaming services, delivery apps, anything we shared. Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, Amazon. I updated the emails, revoked access, cleaned out the automatic logins like I was wiping fingerprints from a scene. I knew he would notice eventually, but by then it wouldn't matter because I wasn't coming back. I went to the gym that afternoon and pushed until my arm shook. 90 minutes of lifting, not to prove anything, just to burn the pressure out of my body. I showered, meal prepped, lined up containers of chicken, rice, broccoli in my brother's fridge like structure could hold me steady. That evening, my brother asked if I'd heard from him. No, I said, and I won't. He looked at me for a long second. You sure? I'm sure, I said. The moment he asked me to leave so she could stay, we were done. Everything after that is just paperwork. My brother nodded and didn't push it. The weekend came and went. I worked from my laptop at my brother's kitchen table. I trained, I read. I slept better than I had in weeks. No anxious checking of my phone, no wondering what he was doing, no weight in my chest. It shocked me how quickly my body accepted the truth. It was like it had been waiting for permission to stop fighting for something already slipping away. 3 weeks passed. Thanksgiving came. I spent it with my brother, his wife, and her family. Good food, good people, no drama. I helped cook, watched football, played cards with their nephews. It felt normal. Easy. I kept waiting for grief to show up like an uninvited guest. It didn't. Not in the way I expected. That Tuesday after Thanksgiving, my brother walked into the living room holding his phone like it was something dangerous. He just texted me, he said. I looked up from my laptop. What did he say? My brother's mouth tightened. He's asking if you're okay. He says you blocked him. He wants to know how to reach you. I stared at the screen of my laptop, the cursor blinking in an unfinished email, and felt nothing but irritation at the audacity. "Tell him I'm fine," I said. "That's all." My brother typed and sent it. A minute later, his phone buzzed again. He read it and looked at me. "He says he wants to talk to you. Says it's important." "It's not," I said. My brother nodded and put the phone away. 2 days later, my best friend called. "I just ran into him at the coffee shop," he said. "He asked about you, said you disappeared." I asked what he told him. "That you're doing great," he replied. "That you moved on." Then he added, "He didn't take it well. He looked genuinely confused, like he really thought you'd come back." That was the part that stung, not because I missed him, but because it confirmed how little he understood what he had asked of me. That week, my ex started reaching out through other people, mutual friends, group chats, even someone I barely knew from an old rooftop party. Most ignored him. One friend felt bad and called me. "He says you ghosted him for no reason," she said. "He says he thought it was temporary." I told her the truth, and when I finished, she went quiet. "That's insane," she whispered. "Yeah," I said, "and he really thought I'd wait around." She sighed, embarrassed on his behalf. "Good for you for walking." "Thanks," I said. "I didn't walk, I thought, but didn't say. I was pushed. I just refused to fall." In early January, I received the first direct attempt. An unknown number called. I almost declined, but something in me wanted to hear what version of reality he still lived in. I answered and didn't speak. His voice came through quiet and tentative. "It's me," he said. "I borrowed a friend's phone. You blocked me." "I know," I said. There was silence, then disbelief in his tone. "Why?" The question was so pure, so absurd, that I almost laughed. "You're serious right now," I said. "Yes," he insisted. "You vanished. I thought we were taking a break. You said okay. You said you understood." I held the phone away from my ear for a second and stared at the wall like it might help me stay calm. "I did understand," I said. "Perfectly." "Then why did you block me?" he asked, voice cracking. "I asked you to give me space for a few days, not disappear forever." My reply came out smooth, almost gentle. "You asked me to leave our home so your ex-girlfriend could stay there with you because seeing me would upset her. You prioritized her feelings over our relationship." Silence. Longer this time. Then he tried to reframe it. "She needed help," he said. "She was in a bad place." "And I needed respect," I said. "You didn't give it." He inhaled like he was about to argue. "So you just left without talking to me, without giving me a chance to explain." "There was nothing to explain," I said. "You made your choice. I made mine." "But I thought you would come back," he said, voice breaking now. "I thought you understood this was temporary." I felt my jaw clench. "Temporary for you," I said. "Not for me." He started pleading, then blaming, then circling back to pleading. He said he couldn't believe I'd throw away 2 years. I said I didn't throw it away. He did. I told him some mistakes don't get second chances. I hung up. He called back immediately. I declined. He called again. Declined. Then a long text came through from that same number. Apologies mixed with blame, and I blocked it too. After that, he tried everything. Showing up at my brother's apartment, messaging friends, creating a fake account to DM me, emails with subject lines like, "Please read this." I deleted without opening. Each attempt made me more certain. Not because he was persistent, but because he still centered himself, his confusion, his pain, his needs. Like my disappearance was the harm, and his request was merely inconvenient. By late January, the attempts slowed. He finally accepted I wasn't coming back. And the strangest part was how quickly my life filled the space he left. In February, I moved into my own place, a small studio downtown, 10-minute walk from work, big windows, a kitchen that didn't feel like someone else's. I furnished it slowly. A couch, a desk, plants, framed posters, no compromises, no shared decisions. My space. And in that quiet, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, relief. Not because the relationship ended, but because it ended clean. Because the moment he asked me to disappear, he made everything clear. And I finally listened. By February, my life had settled into something quieter and steadier than I was used to. My studio apartment was small, but clean, sunlight pouring in through the windows every morning like it had been waiting for me. I ran most days, cooked real meals, slept without waking up to phantom vibrations from my phone. I didn't miss him. What I missed occasionally was the version of myself that thought love meant tolerating discomfort. That illusion didn't last long. 3 weeks after I moved, my phone buzzed with a message from my best friend. "You're not going to like this," he wrote. I asked what happened. He sent a screenshot. It was a post from my ex's social media, a photo of him and his ex-girlfriend at a bar, her head tilted toward his shoulder, his arm casually around the back of her chair. The caption read, "Funny how life works when you stop forcing things." I stared at it longer than I should have, not because I was hurt, but because of how quickly the narrative had flipped. 2 months ago, he'd been confused, blindsided, insisting he thought I'd come back. Now he was rewriting the story in public, positioning himself as the one who'd finally found clarity. I felt something close to amusement. Of course he did. It was easier than admitting he'd detonated his own relationship. The messages started after that, not from him directly, but from people orbiting him, mutual friends asking if everything was okay. One person even said, "He seems really happy now. Maybe this was for the best for both of you." I didn't respond. I didn't correct them. I let the story circulate without my fingerprints on it. Then came the text from an unknown number. "I know you blocked me everywhere else. I just wanted to explain. I deleted it." Another followed the next day. "She's not staying anymore. She left weeks ago. I should have told you." I laughed out loud in my empty kitchen. The timing was almost impressive. He was still trying to negotiate reality. Like if he adjusted the facts enough, the outcome would change. A few days later, he showed up somewhere I didn't expect. The gym I went to early in the mornings, the one he'd never set foot in before. I noticed him in the mirror first, standing near the weights, pretending not to look at me while absolutely looking at me. I finished my set, wiped my hands, and walked past him like he was a stranger. He said my name quietly, unsure. I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. That silence hit harder than any argument could have. Later that week, I got a call from Jessica, one of the friends who'd tried to mediate before. She sounded uncomfortable. "I probably shouldn't be in the middle of this," she said, "but he's telling people you left without explanation, that you just disappeared." I felt a familiar urge rise up, the old instinct to clarify, to defend myself, to make sure I wasn't misunderstood. I let it pass. "You know what happened," I said. "That's enough." She exhaled, relieved. "Yeah," she said. "It is." That night, he emailed me. Subject line, "Closure." I hovered over it for a second, then deleted it without opening. Closure wasn't something he got to request after asking me to vanish from my own life. Closure was what I gave myself when I left. Spring came quietly. The city softened. I started spending weekends outside, hiking, sitting in coffee shops, letting time stretch without anxiety. One afternoon, while waiting in line at a bookstore, I met someone new. His name was Aaron. He was buying the same book I was, made a comment about the author, and we ended up talking for 20 minutes without realizing the line had moved. He asked for my number without pressure. I gave it to him without hesitation. Dating him felt different. There were no landmines, no ghosts hovering in the room. When I told him about my last relationship, I didn't soften it or excuse it. I told the truth. He didn't flinch. He didn't ask why I stayed so long or imply I should have handled it differently. He just said, "That sounds like it hurt." And that was it. No fixing, no judgment, just acknowledgement. The contrast was stark, and in that contrast, I finally understood something I hadn't been able to name before. The moment my ex asked me to disappear, he wasn't choosing his ex over me. He was choosing himself, his comfort, his avoidance of discomfort. I just refused to keep paying the price for it. By the time he stopped trying to reach me, I'd already stopped thinking about him as someone who'd wronged me. He was just someone who showed me exactly where I stood. And that information, as painful as it was in the moment, turned out to be a gift. Because once you see yourself clearly, you stop accepting roles that require you to shrink. And I wasn't shrinking anymore. By the time spring tipped into early summer, the noise around him faded into something distant and unimportant. What surprised me wasn't how quickly he moved on publicly, but how quickly my body adjusted to not being on edge. I stopped scanning rooms. I stopped bracing for awkward run-ins. I stopped waking up with that split-second panic where you wonder what you've missed while sleeping. The quiet wasn't empty anymore. It was settled. Aaron and I kept things simple. Coffee after work, long walks where the city hummed but didn't intrude, dinners that didn't feel like auditions. One night, sitting on my couch with plates balanced on our knees, he asked if I ever missed my ex. The question wasn't loaded. It was curious, gentle. I thought about it honestly before answering. "I miss who I thought he was," I said, "but not who he turned out to be." Aaron nodded like that made complete sense, and in that moment I realized how rare it was to feel understood without having to over-explain. The first time my ex tried to circle back indirectly after that was through a mutual acquaintance who meant well but didn't know when to stop. She told me he was really reflecting, that therapy had come up in conversation, that he finally understood how badly he'd handled things. I listened without reacting. When she finished, I said, "I hope he figures it out." That was all. No invitation, no reopening. Reflection wasn't reconciliation, and understanding didn't undo choices already made. A week later, he sent a message from a brand new email address. No apology, just a paragraph about growth, accountability, and timing. He said he'd been scared of conflict, scared of choosing, scared of being the bad guy. He said he wished he'd handled things differently. He asked if we could meet for coffee, just to talk. I closed the message without replying. Fear might explain behavior, but it didn't excuse it, and explanations weren't what I needed anymore. Life kept expanding in small, steady ways. I signed up for a weekend photography workshop and spent 2 full days focused on light and composition instead of someone else's emotional temperature. I hosted friends for dinner in my studio, laughing at how everyone had to shuffle past each other to get to the sink. I started planning trips months in advance without worrying about whether someone else would need me to cancel. The contrast sharpened every time I thought back to that night in November. The kitchen light too bright, the knife paused over the cutting board, the casual way he told me not to come around. I realized something I hadn't before. He didn't think I'd leave because I never had. Not when things were uncomfortable. Not when I was asked to bend. He mistook my patience for permanence, and that miscalculation cost him everything we had. One evening, while scrolling aimlessly, I stumbled on a post he'd written weeks earlier, a long caption about learning lessons the hard way and respecting boundaries. The comments were full of encouragement, people telling him how brave he was. I felt nothing. No anger, no urge to correct the narrative. The truth didn't need defending anymore. It lived quietly in my choices, not in comment sections. Aaron noticed the shift before I did. "You seem lighter," he said one night as we walked home, "like you're not carrying something you used to." I smiled because he was right. I wasn't carrying it. I had set it down the moment I walked out with that duffel bag, and every day after that had reinforced the decision. What stayed with me wasn't the betrayal itself, but the clarity it brought. When someone asks you to disappear so they can prioritize someone else, they're telling you exactly how replaceable they think you are. Walking away isn't dramatic in that moment. It's necessary. And I had walked away cleanly, without theatrics, without trying to win an argument that was already decided by action. That kind of ending doesn't echo. It settles. The last time I saw him was unplanned and ordinary, which somehow made it feel final. It happened in the produce section of a grocery store on a random Tuesday evening. I was comparing avocados when I heard my name behind me, hesitant, almost unsure it was allowed to exist in my space. I turned and saw him standing there, basket in hand, shoulders sloped inward like he'd been carrying something heavy for too long. Hey, he said quietly. I nodded once. Hey. There was no rush of emotion, no spike of adrenaline, just recognition, like seeing a character from a book you finished months ago. He asked how I'd been. I told him I was good. He said he'd heard I was seeing someone. I said I was. He nodded slowly, eyes dropping to the floor between us. "I'm really sorry," he said, "for how everything went down. I was stupid. I didn't realize what I had." The words were familiar, almost rehearsed. I believed he meant them. I also knew they came too late. "I know," I said, "but understanding it now doesn't change what happened then." He swallowed and asked if there was any chance we could talk sometime, really talk, maybe get coffee. "No," I said gently. The simplicity of it seemed to surprise him more than anger would have. "I'm not angry," I added. "I'm just not going back." His face tightened, not in anger, but in acceptance. He nodded, stepped aside, and let me pass. I put 3 avocados in my basket and walked toward the checkout without looking back. That night, Aaron asked if I was okay. I told him what happened. He listened, then smiled softly and kissed my cheek. "Good," he said. "You chose yourself." And he was right. I had chosen myself weeks ago. This was just the punctuation. I don't think love means accepting anything. I don't think it means waiting endlessly or shrinking to make someone else comfortable. Real love doesn't humiliate you. It doesn't ask you to disappear so someone else can take your place. It doesn't treat you like a backup option while calling it patience. When he told me to stop coming around, he thought okay meant wait. He thought it meant I'd hover nearby until he decided I was convenient again. Okay meant I was done. Done explaining, done negotiating, done accepting half measures dressed up as kindness. These days, my life is full in ways that don't need proof. I run in the mornings. I cook dinners that last longer than 5 minutes. I plan trips without checking in with anyone. I spend time with people who show up without conditions. The peace I have now isn't loud or dramatic. It's steady, reliable. If he ever tells the story, he'll probably say he lost me suddenly, that things got out of hand, that it was a misunderstanding. I don't need to correct it. I know what happened. I lived it, and I know the exact moment it ended. I said okay, picked up my bag, and walked out permanently, and I never looked back.